Twilight Zone. And he was right, but why was he right? It's an anthology series, so every episode is self-contained. There's a whole storyline that starts and ends in the same episode. Sci-fi, it dips into horror, and it taps into the fears of the time. Both Twilight Zone and Black Mirror did that really well. In Twilight Zone, there's this one episode. It's called "The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street," and it's about this whole community that are worried about the other person being an alien. There's aliens in the area, and they're worried that maybe their neighbor is one of them. Now, this was happening at the same time as the witch hunts and McCarthyism and possible communists in the area. So it was tapping into that fear of maybe my neighbor's going to turn me in. This isn't uncommon, though, to tap into the fear of the times. So in Frankenstein, the classic story of a man using new technology to develop this creature that eventually causes all sorts of trouble and destroys a bunch of stuff, was happening at the same time as the Industrial Revolution. And people were dealing with those same fears, right? The fear of this new tech running amok. Godzilla, it's a story about this big creature that's coming and decimating whole cities with no regard for the people that are there. This came out 11 years after the atom bomb was dropped in Japan. Where that film is, they say it was tapping in psychologically to that fear. Zombies, we have them, they're just all over the place. I feel like in the last 10 years it's been a real focus, right? Zombies aren't all over the place. But there's a lot of talk that zombies are, what are they? They're these outside creatures that are coming and taking our independence, they're taking our agency, and they're coming from the outside, which many think is tapping into our fear of globalization and others coming for us for our jobs and what have you, or from around the world. Now, I think Black Mirror fits really well into that sci-fi horror genre because it taps into the general unease that we might have with all this new technology, the new stuff that's coming out every day. But what's different than those is that there are more real-life examples right now that are happening in the world that we're not going to see Godzilla on the street, we're not going to see Frankenstein on the street, maybe zombies, as you just heard. We are going to, but with Black Mirror, you start seeing some real examples that just kind of crop up in the world that makes it really creepy. So there's an episode called Metalhead, and it's about these autonomous killer dog bots, right? And just recently, Boston Dynamics put this out.
It can open doors!
After you. They're working together on our nightmares. And when Wired recently tweeted about it, and the top comment I love is, that Black Mirror episode ruined Boston. So some others in this movie, the episode Nosedive. It's about a world in which everyone rates one another, like Yelp, through social media, and then based on your rating, you have access to certain parts of society, let it be getting into a flight or many other things. And in China, this is happening. It's called the social credit system that they want to fully implement by 2020. And it uses the same methodology, the same thoughts as that episode. And 2 weeks ago, Mr. Colbert had something to say.
Here's the thing. It's really easy to get docked points in this system.
China's version factors in everything from jaywalking to smoking on trains to buying too many video games.
Jaywalking, smoking, too many video games? That is not good news for the coolest kid in 7th grade.
So in the episode Crocodile, there is an autonomous pizza truck that is kind of a crucial part of the plot. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
And what happened at CES this past year, but Pizza Hut put out their own prototype with Toyota.
Of course.
And very excited. And what I love, again, another tweet about it, was Black Mirror. We know how this goes. So there was also, in doing the research for this, I realized there's all this tech I didn't know was out there that I thought was actually pretty cool. Archangel, there's this episode where they put a chip inside the heads of the children here. You can have it put in. And among other things, it blocks out anything that stresses the kids out. So if there are cortisol spikes, it'll blur it out through their eyes. So I'm a new parent, and when I found out that this was real, I'm like, I'd be a horrible dad if I didn't look into this. So I convinced my wife for us to get into the Archangel beta program. And we found, though, once we put it in our son Henry's head, that it was blocking out things we think are important. Like he stopped seeing vegetables. This was George, he wasn't happy.
What happened to the frog that parked illegally?
Those are three pillars, very important pillars of childhood. So we removed it, we took it out immediately. That's 100% real. So Black Mirror at its best raises real questions that you consider once it's done, or maybe an hour later, or maybe the rest of your life you think about it. And for example, in the episode Entire History Review, everyone's able to record everything they see and then re-review it later objectively. And I believe there's a certain amount of psychological safety that comes from being able to misremember things or forget things or block things out. So there would be a lot of questions raised about our identity if that was true. In this episode, deal with some nightmares.
It's the worst.
So that episode, among other things, it might raise questions about how do we feel about online vigilante justice, like Anonymous, going and being the judge, jury, and executioner for people, whether they've done something right or wrong. What about due process and fair trial? It raises questions. In the episode BRB, a woman's lover dies, and they're able to recreate him from his online presence. Now, maybe that would bring us a different sense of what it means to have, a sense of permanence, sense of death, a sense of finality, if you know you can have a chatbot. And more importantly, I think some of my friends that only respond snarkily online or send memes or GIFs are gonna have a weird afterlife. And I'm thinking here, an afterlife, hey, I miss you, friend. They would just send me gifts that one of those friends is right here. I see. I know that secret.
Every day.
So I think the one episode that is the least likely to come true, raises the least amount of questions, is the Waldo moment. So this episode, for those who don't know, is about a foul-mouthed, brightly colored bully who has his own TV show. He ends up getting into politics from his straight talk. He rises to fame on this populist uprising.
Come true.
Everyone, 100 quid to anyone who can lock a shoe.
He incites violence in his followers. He is at one point potentially co-opted by foreign agents to help him get elected. And finally, all he really wants is to get his get his brand and his logo all over the world. So unlikely. This seems far-fetched. Actually, that one checks out. Really colored boy, he got his own TV show, gets into politics, he's got his populist rage.
So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees, I promise. I promise.
Incites violence and says that he will pay for it, foreign agents getting involved, and really just wants worldwide branding. I think that one actually is the most accurate. Isn't that creepy? There are like a bunch more examples. So we are currently living in the Waldo moment in my...
Fake news.
Okay, maybe not. Maybe we're not. So tonight, I've been thinking since our last IHDA event, I want to do something with Black Mirror, and I kicked around a few ideas, and originally I thought maybe we could do something like Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he would take movies and he would break them down as an astrophysicist. So he'd take Interstellar and he'd say, this is possible, this is not, and here's why. So maybe we could take, as designers, all these beautiful interfaces and all the tech that's on the show, and we could say, this works, this obeys Fitts' law, this is a great signifier and an affordance, and then, kind of go through the design talk. But that could get boring. That could get boring after a while. I would be bored of my own voice after a bit. So instead, I approached some of my very talented and thoughtful and accomplished colleagues, and I said, I'm going to give you 10 to 15 minutes, and I want you to take one aspect of the show and just expand upon it from your point of view. It can be anything. And they have produced some really incredible things. So for our first speaker, I'm going to set him up here. In the episode USS Callister, there's this world created like the holodeck in Star Trek, where everyone is there. It's a form of AI or simulation, I don't know exactly what it is, but you can't tell the difference between them in this video game and in real life. So our first speaker, who, if you've come to any of these events, you will recognize, is a member of our experience strategy team here in Chicago, He's a good friend and a wonderful thinker. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Jeff Nile.
Okay. Casey's very flattering. I'll ruin that quickly. So I thought it would be fun to talk about.
Oh, other way.
Other way. Okay, don't get me started on ergonomics. Clicker. Okay, yes, we saw that. So it's the down arrow, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
And I can't make it go far faster. Oh, there you go. DeepFakes in the Uncanny Valley. So this is a woman named Lil Michaela. She's a 19-year-old Brazilian American living in Los Angeles. She's got great freckles. She's really cute. Here she is sporting some Prada, hanging out with her friends, eating ice cream on the boardwalk. Here's her friend, counterpart, Lauco. In less than a year and 175 posts as of last week, she has over 1 million followers on Instagram, which is impressive for real humans, but Lil Michaela is not real. And when you scroll through your Instagram feed quickly, she really looks real. And even when you gaze at her for more than a minute, she still looks very real until you look too closely. It's not the first time. A couple of years ago in Japan, there was the introduction of Saya, who's a 17-year-old schoolgirl, which in Japan is a classic figure or character. And at this time, there were actually 2 designers who decided to make the most realistic human CGI-generated simulation that they could with the most advanced, computers at the time. So here's the wireframe geometry of her hair. So there's the magic trick. But there's a movement of hyper-realism. And Lil Michaela has completely blown up, and now she's sporting Barney's New York and doing sponsored ads and all kinds of things. And was made by, I'll share it. It's an agency in LA called Brud, and they say that they are problem solvers with a focus on AI and new technology. But it's basically take Hollywood and video games and smart people, and you get this strange version of reality. So Saya has a friend as well called Gandhi, and in Japan they didn't spend as much time on him, but they proved that they could make a hyper-realistic male as well. So before you get it, sit there and go, geez, Jeff, why are you looking at these young adults on Instagram? I'm balancing it out, okay? But this sort of looks like a mugshot to me, where here he's the cool guy. So.
It's a question of where the soul is. Japanese people have always been told the soul can exist in everything and anything. We don't have any problem with...
Oops. So, so Professor Hiroshi Ishiguro and his robot Geminoid, or his android as he called it, was one of the first academics to explore this concept of hyper-realistic fake people in Japan. And the quote here, no, we don't have to play it again. Basically, the quote here is about reconciling the debate about comfort with fake sense of reality or something that feels human but has no soul. He's basically saying, yeah, we're okay with that. Because in Japan, the culture is this whole notion of Gaia, the life force, where everything has a soul to some aspect or degree, including his robot.
It's a question of where the soul is. Japanese people have always been told the soul can exist in everything and anything. So we don't have any problem with the idea that a robot too has a soul.
So what the heck is going on? So the term for this is the Uncanny Valley, which you've probably heard. It was introduced also from Japan in 1970 by Masahiro Mori, another technologist and academic. But what's hilarious about this is, the Geminoid might have started as an industrial robot and worked its way to become more realistic as a humanoid robot. We've got like Teddy Ruxpin, the stuffed animal that is an animatronic, or if you're old enough, you might remember Showbiz or Chuck E. Cheese. And then always, all the way at the top is a healthy person. And if you're an ill person, you know, you got a little bit of death going on. And if you're a zombie, then that's Casey's story about zombies in World War Z. Right? The zombies are at in the bottom of the valley of uncanniness. And basically what they observed was when fake creatures become so realistic that they feel real, but they're not quite right, it's pretty creepy, right? So it's uncanny how realistic they look. And essentially what's going on is we've crossed this threshold in many situations where computer systems, whether they're visual or otherwise, are believable and feel real. And for the AI friends in the room, this would be passing the Turing test. But it's not new. Ooh, now that's nice and loud. Okay, so I'll pause this in a second. Okay. No, don't go to that yet. Can I turn this down?
I think it's good now.
I think I got it to pause. So in 1896, the Lumiere brothers in France created one of the first films of a train arriving into a station. And when they previewed it in a cinema, the entire audience got up and ran out because they thought it was real. That's the legend. Of course, we don't have Facebook to record it anymore, or until now. But they really believed it was real because if you think of the size of a cinema screen, it might match the size of a train, and they'd never seen anything like it. So for the film buffs or the art nerds in the room like me, like this is one of the first stories I heard in art school, and we've seen it before. Okay.
As you can actually see each and every tiny hair and curl on my skin. All of those hairs are combined, and they look like over 100,000 polygons. Now that's the kind of detail that we're talking about this year.
Okay, so I'll talk over this one. In February of this year, I think E3 or one of the conferences out west, Unreal Engine released Siren, which is their technology to, sorry, we'll do a little less. Thank you. Real-time rendering of a real actor turned into a virtual person, right? And so you can see the geometry of the wireframe, which is the reveal. But if you've ever played PS4 games or Xbox games, in the PS5, you're going to have this level of fidelity whenever it comes out of hyper-realistic humans in your games, as if it wasn't real enough. And then we've probably all seen this clip floating around the internet or in your Facebook or Twitter feed. Princess Leia in Rogue One, at the very end, spoiler alert, up on top it was, I'll play it twice, up on top was ILM, Disney, whatever, their version, which was very expensive. And on bottom, a Reddit user using a DeepFake algorithm to transplant Carrie Fisher's face onto Princess Leia for free instead of $1 million, and it looks better. It really does look better. One more time, because it's short. Sorry, there's no audio. But she doesn't look like she has like mascara or raccoon eyes, and it doesn't really look like it's like putty. It really looks, well, because it's actually real from a previous recording of Carrie Fisher, not a generated model. Okay, here's where it gets fun. If you go down the YouTube rabbit hole of deep fakes, we'll let this one play out. The name of this one is called National Treasure 3. Because who is that? It's not Harrison Ford. It's Nicolas Cage. No, there is no National Treasure 3. Not yet. But wait for it. The effects back in the 80s were great. But look at this. That expression is amazing. So if you notice, and if you remember this movie, Harrison Ford actually had a little bit of that, like that particular facial expression. That Nicolas Cage's expression is, his face is blurring with Harrison's expression. So one more.
First I was afraid, I was petrified. Kept thinking I would never get side. But I spent so many nights just thinking how you did me wrong. I grew strong, and I learned how to get along. And now you're back. I'm out of space.
What I love about this is when the hair flips during the rotation, the face is highly precise.
I should have made you leave your key. If I'd have known for just 1 second, you'd be back to bother me. Yo, now go. Walk out the door.
Okay. But, you know, Nick makes a pretty good singer, right? No, but the facial mapping is getting very impressive. So, how is this made? Well, thanks to our friends at Facebook, in 2014, their AI research team invented an algorithm they called DeepFakes. And before you think, oh God, Facebook doing another scandalous thing without any regard for humans, this actually has legitimate, I would say, academic or internal rationale for doing facial recognition, as they've been doing it with our permission for a long time. So what's going on is they take a picture of a face, 2D, find all the unique points in it, got our friend Sylvester Stallone here, they apply it to a 3D model of a generic face and extract the special points and build a model of Sylvester Stallone's face. And then once they have the 3D model, they collect more images of his face at different angles through all the media that goes through the internet, and now they can create new angles. So they're transforming 2D to 3D back to 2D. And here's Callista Flockhart, and it goes through this 9-layer process, and these are the images that the algorithm makes that we don't see, that cranks out the final. So this algorithm leaked, and some guys on Reddit got a hold of it and changed the name from DeepFakes to DeepFake. So the trick is to train the algorithm on a huge data set of images of the face. Facebook has been doing this with our faces for a really long time, so which we gave permission for if you signed up for Facebook. So here's the deal. Creating deepfakes has gone from being super expensive and reserved for Hollywood to becoming completely free. You can go download this off of GitHub and compile it on your Mac and go find a data set of Casey's face. I should make one. And you can start swapping Casey's face onto my face? No. Or your baby's face, and that's weird. Or we'll put Nicolas Cage's face on Casey's head. So here's the deal. Reddit banned the deepfake subreddit because this is a family-friendly environment. They were making pornography with celebrities' faces on existing video clips of the acts. But the deal is, it's involuntary, right? So there's no permission being granted. So Reddit, Twitter, all of the major social media channels banned it, which is good. And I promise I've never seen any of that because I wouldn't do that. We've all seen this probably like last week.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second.
It's
Sure,
worth
what
watching
time are
this
you
to the
looking
end.
for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now? Okay, we have at 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa.
That's a giveaway.
Okay,
Grammar is
perfect.
weird.
So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks, great. Have a great day. Bye.
The tech crowd goes wild at Google I/O, which some of our friends were at. And here's Sundar Pichai announcing this like literally a week ago. I'm sure you saw this make the rounds, where it's the voice chatbot talking to a real person to make the appointment versus the other way around. So technically, this is incredible. It uses a WaveNet technology that comes out of DeepMind in the UK. Huge backlash to this. Everybody said, wait, hold on. Like, what are you doing? then Sundar got up and said, this is really going to be great for our users. And the user community said, I don't want that. So the reason is, I don't want to be faked that I think I'm talking to a believable human when it's actually a computer. So Google will now identify itself to humans as a computer system, similar to when you call in, and this call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes, or stamping a photo saying it's authentic or it's been modified. So we should have some regulation. If you decide that you want to try this out, you can go download Deep Voice for free, put out by Baidu, which is from China. So we can have US regulations, but we should have some global consideration as well. We've been making jokes about GDPR email notifications this week, so thanks EU. But it's free. Okay, a couple more. We'll stop.
I wanted all that one to be nice. Make someone else do that.
Wow, right? So now we're into the zone of cultural commentary about the issues of Hollywood whitewashing Asian characters in cinema. I wish he would have done it with Ghost in the Shell, when replaced Scarlett Johansson with an Asian actress. But he went for John Cho as Captain America, which is also pretty incredible, but highly believable, I would say. There's probably more. So now we're getting into the zone of cultural commentary and art. And then last but not least.
See, I would never say these things. Someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet. It's a time when we need to rely on trusted news sources. It may sound basic, but how do we move forward? The age of information is going to be the difference between whether we survive or whether we become some kind of up dystopia.
Family friendly.
Stay woke, bitches.
So the reason why I know everyone's probably seen this, but I put it at the end because it's the culmination of all these new technologies packaged together by Jordan Peele to make his point about what's real and to be vigilant. And if you look really closely, you'll notice some aspects of the face mapping that don't quite work, but we now have fake faces and fake voices combining together where we literally could have fake news. So when your jokes about Trump, politics aside, there's actually some legitimacy to the concept of fake news. I wonder where he got that from. Well, why is this so unsettling? For the critical theory students in the room, you may notice I've found a way to make a 2x2 based on Marshall McLuhan's The Medium is the Message, or the Massage. We have to think about the medium where we believe it. We're told, our expectations are set that it's real versus fake, as well as the message is supposed to be fact versus fiction. So you've got the whole range of the fake Obama with Jordan Peele being fake, but it's supposed to be fact because it's based on previous context where we would believe it's supposed to be real, to superheroes, which use a lot of the same technology, but I mean, the Incredible Hulk is incredible, but would never happen in real life unless Godzilla is true. But then over here, the other part is reality TV, where I was watching this show, The Prophet, on CNBC a couple days ago, and there was an episode where he was talking about, he goes and fixes businesses, and it's a reality TV show, but he had to sue one of his businesses that failed, and he took his reality TV footage with him to court, and the judge turned it down because he said, how do I know this is real? Because it's reality TV. So it wasn't accepted as fact in the court of law. So then, but this is supposed to be real. So why is it so unsettling? I don't know what's real anymore. So the DeepFakes of Ivanka, no. So here's what's going on. Let's get to the end here. So Kevin Kelly, the techno-futurist critical theorist who is somewhat of a descendant of Marshall McLuhan, I've got two quotes. So from his Technology Wants to Be Free from 2007, so 10 years ago, he basically says, I'll summarize, as technology becomes free, it will find an appropriate niche where it can sustain itself and support other technologies as a commodity. So rather than being expensive and only reserved for Hollywood, hey, we can all use this for free. But it will find its natural place. That's what he's arguing. But more importantly to me is, the one thing that you cannot copy is trust. And trust can only be earned over time with consistency and integrity and authenticity. And that comes from Better Than Free, which was the blog post just before Technology Wants to Be Free, if you want to go check out Kevin Kelly's blog. He also wrote The Inevitable, which talks about forces that shape technology, and this is the precursor to that. So what do we do as designers? Because I'm a designer, but I am dealing with clients asking me to make Alexa skills. I teach a class on it, and some of these notions we're grappling with. The first is classic UX principles. Build trust by setting expectations and then not doing a bait and switch. Put the user in control of his or her data, which you can now download your Facebook data, your Apple iCloud data. Like, you can get snapshots of this stuff, which I guess is helpful. Be authentic about the exchange of value between the user and the organization. And this is where Facebook got into trouble with Congress and Cambridge Analytica, where we signed up for something and then they, behind our back, did something else. They were not authentic about where the value happens. And that comes from a multiple dimension business model. Be the voice of the user within our organizations. Our cameraman has a shirt that says, "I fight for the user," which is a wonderful Tron reference. And we do need to fight for the user. My opinion is, rather than saying we should shut this down, we should embrace the technology so that we can control and shape how it's used. These are no different than Photoshop filters, although they are exceedingly convincing and fast and automated. And then finally, we should become involved in creating policy and laws to encourage regulation where appropriate, rather than just hoping that our senators will do something about it, because we know how well that works. Like, we might actually need to get political, because we understand it before everybody else does. So if you sense that there's an ethical responsibility as a designer, this is one of the ways to shape what happens in our society. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff Brown. Thank you. All right, so our next speakers come to us from the tech department. We have